Alright, so that video, that part, I just cut it off because it was just kind of bugging out. So we should be back in business now. Seems like it's good. So yeah, moving on. Verse 17. And that no man might buy or sell, so if he either had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Alright, so we know that right now it's kind of still being pushed as this is just something great for people with disabilities. This is just something that's just the future, right? And then eventually, more than likely they're gonna push it as in a mercantile sense. Hey, market and push it out to the general public. Hey, why don't you guys come out and take this stuff, man? You can play video games with your brain. You can play GTA with your skull. You don't have to have that clunky. You don't have to hold a controller or use VR headsets or nothing like that. You can just have it and just play with your brain, man. You know, um, and things like that. However they push it out, right? That you don't gotta stand on these lines, right? Say if you the element might buy or sell, it's gonna be a big selling point. The big one, right? Because eventually, they're gonna push it out like, hey, you don't have to be on this line. You could just pay with your hand by scanning your head or with your head, all right? You don't even gotta pull out your phone or nothing, or pull out your wallet, all right? But eventually, it's gonna be mandatory, right? Because they're gonna tie it to the money, right? And to be able to buy food, to be able to make money, right? Whether by working or having businesses and things like that, you're gonna need to have that Motb, right? They're gonna block everything, right? Behind having that Motb, your bank accounts, and in the midst of Jacob's trouble, they're gonna be like that. They're gonna push the order out of chaos, right? That's a common playing, that's a common method or common, um, is it modus operandi? Uh, Modus operandi. Latin phrase meaning mode of operating, a method or pattern in criminal behavior so distinctive that can separate crimes or wrongful conduct are recognized as the work of the same person. Right? And this is from law.cornell.edu. So yeah, modus operandi. Right? That's what they do constantly. Right? They cause the chaos and then they bring the order. You saw it with the Windows 19. All right? They cause the chaos, engineer it, and then they do it to push out what they want to push out, which was just a test. Right now, when Jacob's trouble is in full swing and they push this Motb out, these people are going to flock to it, man. Right? To get their lives back, to get their their jobs back, and feel like they can go back to society. All right. So yeah. All right. So say if he that had the mark or the name of the beast, the vibration or the number of his name, which goes back into 666, which is Chi Psi Stigma. All right. And the point goes back to stigma. All right. See here, Chi Psi Stigma. All right. Stigma. All right. Goes back into cutting. All right. Goes back to cut, which once again goes back into the Motb. Right. Which goes into the injections and the incisions, right? Whether it's done by surgery or done by injection, because some are done by injections, some they do by cutting, and some they seem like they just make imports in people and plug in the damn thing into them like a fucking cyberpunk 2077 character, dude. You know what I mean? This is what's being pushed. This damn devil's doing. All right. Last precept, Revelation 15 and 1. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues. Oh, whoa! Having the 7 last plagues. For in them is filled up the wrath of the Most High. Okay, I'll read that again. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of the Most High. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, right? And the one that got him the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, sit in the sea of glass, having the harps of the Most High. Okay, so, right, and I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, right, which is the nuclear fire, right, the destruction of America, right, and them that got victory over the beast, the elect, and over his image, and over his mark, meaning that the elect will be those who would resist taking the Motb and worshiping the image of the beast, right? America, following after Rome, you know, and following, their ways pretty much, and taking the Motb, right? Over the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, having the harps of the Most High, right? Standing over the sea of glass, right? Goes over into the chariots, man. Pretty much the elect, standing on the chariot, right, looking down and beholding the destruction of America. And that's what they're pretty much seeing, right? Standing, in the chariot above the firmament and watching that destruction of America, right? Because you gotta go back to Revelation. It talks about how the waters of the sky will separate from the waters that were below, all right? So the firmament, like the ozone layer, and so on and so forth, right? The elect, right? Though we be at that number, will stand above, right, in that fathership and behold that destruction of America, right? In other words, to be of the elect, right, you must not take the Motb. If you take the Motb, you're pretty much, you're not gonna get saved on this side, right? If you're here in America, this place will guaranteed be your doom. It guaranteed be your tomb. It really will be your tomb, whether or not you have the Motb. If you're just not the elect, it's just gonna be your tomb, all right? And yeah, I mean, in other parts of the world, Jake's different people are gonna take it. You have to stay in an area where they're not hit by Motb, and you have they're not hit by the ICBMs, World War III, and they had the Motb. Maybe they were Jake, maybe not. If you're heathen, regardless, you're going into subjection. But if you're Jake, it's kind of yet to be seen what will be done. Will they be put to death or not? But we'll figure that out. We'll know in the kingdom, man. The one will be, of the elect, man. Or willing. All right. So I'm gonna let that be that. But one, it's edifying to say shalom.